We're live. All right. Got a bunch of videos and tweets, posts open here on X. Just wanted to go through them. We have a video from Ian Carroll. We have a bunch of other just interesting tweets. Additionally, of course, we had the Vladimir Putin, Tucker Carlson interview that was, if you're not a fan of Russian history and Eastern European history, was kind of boring. I watched the entire interview at least once when it went live. And then, you know, other segments multiple times. For example, the segment about Boris Johnson intervening and cutting off peace talks with Russia between Ukraine. And then you could see Boris Johnson went on kind of this deflection tour immediately following, and then blaming Tucker Carlson for doing this interview with Vladimir Putin. And then, you know, the Daily Mail, I believe, generated just a bunch of propaganda to support Boris Johnson. So that was kind of the main takeaway, I think, from the entire interview. And I think that maybe perhaps that little tidbit of knowledge wasn't publicly available. Maybe it was, but it wasn't distributed very widely. So I think that's very important because, you know, right before the interview, I had streamed and I had talked about Russian history and how it dates back to, you know, the year 800 or 1000, in that 200-year time frame. And Rurik came from Stockholm. He was a Viking. And you could see Putin basically echoed or mirrored those words by saying that, you know, Rurik was a Varangian prince. So Varangian is a Russian word for Viking. And he came over and he provided the capabilities to conduct law enforcement between some of the tribes that existed over there that were engaged in a civil war with one another. Slavic tribes, and there were a few other tribes, but they're mostly Slavic. And you could see kind of some ancillary history there with others like Oleg and going down to Kiev. So Vladimir Putin went on, you know, and talking about Novgorod, for example, and the fortress up there that Rurik built, and the Rus are, the whole name of Russia comes from Rurik. And, you know, it's a Scandinavian construct, especially in northwest Russia by St. Petersburg. And so the Rus, the original ruling Tsar party, the whole idea of Russian czars came from Rurik. They were all great grandsons. So like 150 years after that, there was a great grandson of Rurik who converted the two power centers that later became officially Russia, Kiev and St. Petersburg, as well, three actually, and Moscow, because everything started to move kind of centrally to Moscow. Converted it into, you know, an Orthodox Christian state. And that's really kind of the birth of Russia as we know it today. So I think, you know, Vladimir Putin kind of talked about that, but that's not really interesting for an interview, especially for Americans. You know, it's like, you know, there's so much anti-Russian propaganda in the US, and most people don't understand history at all, let alone Eastern European history. And so that's why I talked about it on stream. And it was just eerie hearing Vladimir Putin basically echo literally the same words that I had stated, you know, a day or two before that. So it was, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, did Putin, like, did his people like see this stream or something? Of course they, you know, it's not true, but you know, you're just like, I said those exact same words. And again, this is all, you know, I talk about this a little bit, you know, my mother's Swedish. So this is all known, and you know, Swedes know this, okay? It's just part of our history. And, you know, the Vikings literally have never lost any war. They've lost a few battles here and there, but they've generally won most battles, and they have never lost a war. Give me a war that the Vikings have lost. You can't. So, and I'm saying this with respect to Russia, because Russia is not being fairly offensive in this conflict with Ukraine. I mean, they're just literally trying to go in there and, according to Vladimir Putin, protect the eastern part of Ukraine from this CIA coup that they, you know, it's interesting too, because if you look at it from Vladimir Putin's perspective, he wanted to be as comfortable as possible during this interview. He was tapping his left foot. You know, he was leaning back in his chair, just like I am now, and he wanted to make this into more of like a 2.5, 3 hour ordeal. And I think Tucker was trying to like extract and pull things out. Of course, it would have been more entertaining if it was, you know, an American style interview, but it was really a Russian style interview. So Tucker went there, he did a Russian style interview. And I, you know, immediately after watching it, I thought, well, you know, this is kind of boring. Let me, you know, sleep on this, and then I'll kind of come to a conclusion on what I actually think. And yeah, it wasn't entertaining, but there were some good pieces of information. I didn't think it would have any impact on this war, but actually it has. Because you could see the American, the Western propaganda machine go into full engine, you know, start up the presses. Boris Johnson got out. You could see Anthony Blinken talk a little bit about it. You could see Biden talk about it. So they had, you know, The Hill, Politico, all the propaganda coordinated, came out at the same time, pushed through big tech, Facebook, and Google, of course, as we know it. So, and, you know, the other big takeaway I think that I had from watching that interview is that Vladimir Putin is like 1,000 times more competent than Joe Biden. Now, I knew that going into watching this interview, but when you watch this interview, you could see that Vladimir Putin is a very, he's very calculating, and he gave Tucker Carlson a lot of patience and respect, at least personally, in that interview. I'm not saying that Vladimir Putin is that way politically with his people, but he certainly gave Tucker Carlson like a very friendly interview, and it was almost like, you know, they could be playing basketball with one another, or you know, they're palling around, right? So, and people are blaming Tucker Carlson for asking, and there's a couple of clips in here actually about Tucker Carlson not effectively interviewing Vladimir Putin and maybe asking some softball questions. And I don't know. I think I'll have to think on that. But I think there were some really good questions asked, actually. And, you know, the things, so I was kind of disappointed, though, that I didn't hear about Russian culture. Like, Tucker Carlson could have asked Vladimir Putin what he thought of woke American culture and what's happening in this country, particularly with respect to, and Vladimir Putin just said like very little about like the southern border. That's kind of the extent of any sort of quote, you know, woke culture stuff. But overall, I thought that was a pretty good interview. Although it was very boring to watch. I agree. Anyways. Speaking of what Vladimir Putin said about Tucker Carlson trying to join the CIA, we have a little clip here from Ian Carroll, who likes to do these kind of conspiracy theory oriented TikTok style interviews, not interviews, videos. So let's play it. He's a bro. I can't hear it because it's fucking muted. Boom.
You want to know how the CIA steals elections? Part 1, we'll do America. Part 2, we'll do Ukraine. And if you're on the left, settle down.
Wow, that
I voted with you my entire
awful.
life. This is not a video about pro-Trump. This is a video about anti-corruption and anti-military industrial complex takeovers of our world. And if you're on the right, settle down. This video is not about Trump. This video is about the CIA. And what does the CIA have to do with Hunter Biden's Russian disinformation story? Well, you'll remember that when the Hunter Biden laptop story was published to the New York Post, weeks before the election, more than 50 former intelligence officials signed a letter saying that that was Russian disinfo. Although they didn't actually present any evidence, they just said that it's deeply suspicious that the Russian government played a significant role in the case. This letter was apparently delivered to Politico by Nick Shapiro, former top aide under CIA Director Brennan. Nick Shapiro has more than 15 years of crisis management experience in the White House, at the CIA, and in the private sector. Wonder what kind of crisis he has experience
all
managing.
Media
Anyways,
become co-opted by
this is just part of the
all these
extensive list of intelligence operatives that signed it. And I
mean,
did
this
not
must have happened under the
Obama
regime administration.
Number 1, James Clapper, ex-director of national intelligence, who committed perjury for telling a congressional committee hearing.
He's such a little
NSA
bitch, James Clapper, man. That guy looks like just such a little bitch. He's like bald, you know. He comes in all arrogant, and he acts like he's a big shot when he's doing these interviews with people, and he's really just a major fag.
Data on millions of Americans. Nice. Number 2, Michael Hayden, who was the director of the NSA when they were doing that program. Oh yeah, and he's been accused of lying to Congress during the 2007 testimony about the CIA's enhanced interrogation program, i.e.
they just torture. Get on
nice. Those are just the first 2 on the list.
Lie.
It goes on and on.
No accountability.
So anyways, the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinfo because this letter signed by a whole bunch of
they always use Russia as a straw man for all this stuff. And the more you really think about it, Russia has had very little, if not zero, impact on this country. I mean, and it's almost crazy to assume that, like the Hillary Clinton style, that's all Russia. Like, what is your deal with Russia? This is like a Napoleon, Hitler, maniacal, you know, egomaniac approach to world domination.
CIA liars said it seems like it probably is Russian disinfo. That was all the ammo they needed for Mr. Biden to cite that letter during presidential debates, and on and on and on.
Oh, we also had the Robert,
as reported by the New York Times, 3 years later,
report that came out.
No concrete evidence has emerged to confirm the assertions that the laptop was Russian disinformation, and portions of its contents have been verified.
In fact, you know, the more that you think about that, that's been out. So the special prosecutor report that came out about Biden and the handling of classified documents. If anything, I think that the report was not you know, as accurate, I think, as it could have been about Biden's mental state. And, you know, people are saying, well, it was too raw, it was too sort of biting with regard to, you know, Biden's memory and his mental capacity and just, you know, his ability to function. And, you know, look, everybody's saying, well, Biden has keys basically to creating wars. Biden has keys to the nuclear codes. Biden can, you know, ruin, you know, an unlimited number of people's lives. And, you know, he has dementia, and they say, well, you know, memory doesn't impact someone's judgment. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then they roll out the same sort of like CIA style propaganda to defend Biden. And, you know, who's really in control right now? It's the intel agencies. It's these senior officials in the Biden administration. It's all the bureaucrats running these agencies who are in their late 30s and 40s, you know, my age. And a lot of these people are women. And if there's woke women who are in their late 30s and 40s running these agencies from a technical standpoint, doing all the dirty work, That's one of the reasons that our country is in such a mess right now. And I think we have a tweet in here from Colonel McGregor talking about, we're literally 1 second from midnight right now. The weakness that now has been signaled to all these other leaders around the world to start wars, conflicts, do whatever they want right now in the next 8 to 10 months before Trump takes office. Well, Trump takes office in January next year, but the election in November. I mean, there's people who are running this country who aren't elected. They shouldn't be running this country. They have no business ruling over people's lives in the way that they are. And, they're propping up Biden, of course, because they're the ones in power and they want to prop him up so they can maintain their own power. It is so clear and obvious.
Has been verified as authentic. In fact, there were 3 laptops, not just one. And in fact, the House Judiciary Committee and Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Federal Government, i.e. corruption in our government, revealed that the same FBI personnel who were warning social media companies about a potential Russian hack and leak operation in the run-up to the election,
again, why Russia?
Knew that the laptop belonged to Hunter, was not
Russia
Russian disinformation. And just wait, because we're getting to the part that you don't know about yet, where the CIA actually did war games on this very thing.
It's just so outrageous to blame Russia for everything.
Before it came out. Because the minute the New York Post reported about it, all the rest of the media went on full blitz mode. The Hill, PBS, CNN, NBC, the Boston Globe, Business Insider, Huffington Post, MSNBC. There was a coordinated campaign across all media to smear it as Russian disinformation, which is insanely ironic.
We all know this. I mean, this is just a replay that we've seen, 50,000 times.
So much, like, sure, not
I think
a great
for
guy,
him to kind of communicate it in the bro tone that he's doing is
that you're not paying attention to court proceedings.
But there's also other pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also other pieces here that he's presenting which are really valuable. Plus, he seems fairly credible because he's clearly not a Trump fan. I mean, he says it in this video, but he's also not a Biden fan. And you see that more and more, especially from younger people. I mean, they're seeing a lot of geriatric federal officials running this country, and they're tired of it.
The House Oversight Committee on Hunter Biden's influence peddling and the Biden family making money off of it. The Bidens and their associates have received over $20 million in payments from foreign entities. Over $20 million. That would be over $3 million from Romania.
I mean, it's not a lot of money.
$6.5 million from Ukraine.
If you're
and wait,
leading the United States and you're the president, but
from
considering
Russia,
you have like $1 trillion, billion-dollar budgets, but for you personally, $20 million is an extraordinary amount of money.
With extensive financial forensics, right down to actual bank statements, actual wire transfers, actual accounts. But the media was so effective at discrediting it as Russian disinformation.
And why do people
because
believe
they were
it?
Prepared.
You know?
In fact, just a month before, they had already had a special conference where they prepared for what they would do if there was some compromising leak about Hunter Biden. They all knew what he was up to. And so the Aspen Institute held a Hunter Biden exercise right before the election, where they went over a totally fictional 11-day scenario where what happens if someone leaks fake made-up information leaked by Russians about Hunter Biden's employment with the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. So to be clear, certain people within the Aspen Institute concocted a scenario that was framed as Hunter doesn't do anything wrong, but the other side is going to try to smear him, and maybe the Russians will release this information. False.
Just imagine, like, how long it took in order to build this sort of coordination and cooperation among the intel agencies, the White House, the media. It took at least 10 years in the Obama administration in order to kind of like, connect everything up. And for this to be so well executed right before the election, remember the Biden laptop, Hunter Biden laptop came out, 2-3 weeks right before the election. Everybody knew it was real, but then there were accusations that there could be, unlawful things on it. And of course there were some unlawful things on it, and maybe hopefully some of the other stuff has been kind of like extracted out. But for them to be able to come in with such coordination and executed to the extent that they did shows that there was an extreme sort of like lubrication of all these valves, probably performed in some way by Obama or senior Obama officials, maybe David Axelrod with Rahm Emanuel and a bunch of other people who were able, and we now have the media who, it's always been fairly liberal, but it's never been coordinated in such a way that there's literally no truth coming out. I mean, you're just now, what, 2-3 years later, seeing CNN admit that Biden has mental issues. First time. But it's been clear way, way, way before Biden even announced that he was going to run for president in 2020.
Falsely claiming that there's sketchy things going on with Hunter's finances. And so as news organizations, you should all be ready for Russian disinformation when it happens,
Fucking
because
assholes.
it would be really bad for our election if Russia were to do that. So they got everyone together, and this is the actual page 1 of the document of their scenarios that they went over, and all the different news agencies went over how they would respond. We're talking like MSNBC, CNN, Twitter, everyone was there. They literally war gamed out how to deal with this leak before it happened, because someone at the Aspen Institute suggested that maybe it would happen, and if it did, that would be Russian disinformation. So when it did, all the news agencies already were primed to believe that it was Russian disinformation. And so when a whole bunch of CIA operatives published this letter that claimed it was probably Russian disinformation, all these news agencies were already ready to accept that that was the
Every
truth.
single one
because
of those
this institute called the Aspen Institute, that's funded by all the gigantic billionaire philanthropy foundation,
need to be
and
banned
has literally
from
been asking
lobbying,
the CIA
from the government,
to be its buddy
all their
since the
security
very
clearances
first year it was
pulled.
founded, and to this day invites the director of the CIA every single year to give talks. That institute primed them to believe that it would be Russian disinformation. But it was very real, and you can go and look at it all for yourself if you want. I obviously can't show the pictures because this video is going to be on platforms like Instagram and TikTok. If you just go to bidenlaptopmedia.com, it's all there. And it is censored. It's got coloring out of anything censored, but you can clearly see what's going on. For Twitter, I'm going to briefly go over some of it now, and that part will be cut for the other platforms. Because the most fucked up thing of all is that when you look through the photos on Hunter Biden's laptop, the person that is in it the most is actually his child niece. And it's really dark. Like,
I'm going to skip through that, but yeah, it's terrible.
Quickly remember what's going on here. We have a president who was elected under circumstances that involved the CIA doing things. Right. And then during his presidency, we have 2 wars going on. In part 2, we'll go over how the CIA probably didn't have anything to do with starting the Ukraine war. And the other war is wildly unpopular because we are literally...
I mean, it's so obvious and it's so crazy that people are so fucking stupid that they would vote for Biden knowing that he's going to bring these wars in. Everything he said during the campaign, that Trump was going to, create all these wars and all this stuff, and it was nonsense. I mean, Trump has absolutely no track record of starting any wars. And Trump really campaigned on the no war agenda, especially when he attacked Hillary Clinton during those debates. And saying that we're going to have World War III if Hillary Clinton is elected, and we would have. And now we're almost at World War III because fucking Biden got elected. And, everything that Biden, during the campaign in 2020 said should have been seen as the opposite. So if he said, I'm not going to start any wars, that means there's going to be a ton of wars. If he said, the economy is going to be, we're not doing enough for low-income people, that means that low-income people are going to get totally destroyed in the Biden economy. And look at what is happening. Inflation is really at record all-time highs. I don't see it coming down here. And I live in the upper Midwest, where we are really close to agriculture, food prices, beef prices, dairy. And, you go and you get fast food and the price is 33% more every single year. In fact, in the last 3 years, I think prices have gone up. I mean, they're saying like 300%. I'm not even joking.
Funding a foreign country bombing civilians and children. And I know that most of you on the left are opposed to the war in Israel, and you can probably use your brain to kind of make the connections between the CIA and Mossad and the aligned interests in those deep government groups. So you have a president that was elected with help from the CIA, who now has two wars going on that the CIA is really big on, along with Lord knows what else in the shadows. I might mention that all these CIA
Generation
Z, that letter, they have one thing in common.
Why they wear that hat like that? Like, I know I wear this hat, but like they wear that like barrel hat. I don't understand it.
You have never voted for any of these people, and yet they have worked in government.
It's almost like an NPC hat
for years, decades, some of them. When conspiracy theorists talk about the deep state, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about intelligence agencies aligned with military-industrial complex interests, aligned with media organizations that we know the CIA has been influencing, buying off,
it is,
and subverting.
Yeah, I think like identifying an accurate definition of what the, the quote deep state is, because it's so abstract. It's like, Alex Jones saying the globalists, and then people refer to people like Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, and others. But, the deep state is a growing phenomenon, especially in the federal government. It's not just those groups that Ian Carroll just recognized here. It's also a bunch of others. I mean, basically, all the military officers in every single branch now could be construed as being part of the deep state. And well, that may not be true entirely, obviously. There are a lot of female officers, particularly in, the Navy and the Air Force, who are woke and they have an agenda. A lot of the bureaucrats, high-level bureaucrats running these agencies like the FTC, I mean, they're part of the deep state. They're woke. I mean, they're not doing it. A lot of the DOJ now is woke and part of the deep state, which Ian Carroll did not talk about here. Like the Department of Justice isn't enforcing any kind of sense of fairness or justice in a lot of these states. I mean, we still have a rampant two-tier justice system that allows for, especially people associated with or involved in the quote deep state, to get away with any sort of crime that they want repeatedly. And then, if you have a hangnail, you're going to get prosecuted because you didn't take care of your own hangnail. That's the level of absurdity we have with this two-tier justice system. And we just saw that on display with the special prosecutor report that came out with Robert Hur, talking about Biden not being able to remember anything, so he's therefore immune from charges. Whereas, however, we have President Trump getting hit with, 5, 7 felony charges for retaining classified documents. Now, everybody says, well, why didn't President Trump just return the documents? Could have done that. Yes, maybe that would have been the smarter move. Mar-a-Lago wouldn't have got raided. However, I think Mar-a-Lago getting raided and keeping those documents, if you were in President Trump's shoes, was maybe a turning point in how people viewed President Trump and this whole criminal justice system. I know, for example, for one, Tucker Carlson came to Trump's defense at that point when Mar-a-Lago was raided. So maybe it was a brilliant decision. I don't know.
For decades, all just pushing little bits of influence here and little bits of reporting there, and covering things up there.
All the benefits go to them. None of the benefits go to you.
To slowly push an agenda that is a little bit more enriching for them and a little bit more destructive for the whole rest of the world.
A little bit more destructive
all
for all
y'all that
of
voted
us.
for Biden last time,
I don't think it's a little bit. I think it's a lot of it.
You really gotta do some soul searching and think about who the hell are you gonna vote for this time? Because burying your head.
Well, so this is part of the problem. That's why I have a lot of respect for people like Dean Phillips who are challenging Joe Biden. While I'm not a fan of Dean Phillips politically, for the most part, there's no one challenging Biden. And this is the problem with our dual political system. You know, we have very few choices. And if you're a Democrat, if you're liberal, if you're going to vote for someone maybe in that arena, you're going to vote for fucking Biden? Doesn't make any fucking sense. All right, let's move on from that. This is Illuminati bot. I keep trying to explain to everybody that the psychopaths running this country would rather destroy the world than lose their control of it. Believe me now. Here's a good meme. Driver on the right, middle-aged American male. Nope. Just a normal dude from 20 years ago. And then the woman in the passenger seat on the left here says, "Aren't you a right-wing extremist?" It's American life currently. There's so much to love about this photo. So this is a photo of a presumably like a Vietnam or Korean veteran. He's wearing what appears to be like a army issued hat. And then he's wearing a sign that says, "God bless America." I love this. Love it. So this is a video and it says, "Become ungovernable." Ungovernable. Don't be governed. You can just cut the sign down. Not a big deal. What are they going to do? Charge you? Destruction of public property? Who cares? I mean, you know how much destruction they're getting away with right now? I mean, they're killing hundreds of thousands of people in Ukraine. I mean, and they're going to charge you with chopping a sign down? Fuck them. This is nepotism at its finest. Contact the state's ethics commission. I haven't seen this, don't know what it is. We'll watch it.
Massachusetts governor has nominated her former lesbian girlfriend to the state Supreme Court.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Interesting.
Was there no one else more qualified?
She's definitely a butch. She's dyking it up.
No.
Maura Healey and Gabriella R.
Maura Healey and Gabriel Houlihan.
Porogian spent more than 8 years together
8
and
years
even
together.
shared a home.
I had a personal relationship with Judge Wolahojian for many years, so I happen to also know something about her character and integrity and the kind of person she is.
The state Republicans called on Healey to withdraw.
Sounds like a political appointment where the girlfriend can now go after political opponents.
For the highly inappropriate nomination, the governor, however, defended her choice.
I don't want the fact that she had a personal
I bet you at some point they say, well, they're anti-LGBTQ or something if there's any major criticism.
relationship with me to deprive the
I'll throw out
Commonwealth
the victim card
of
somewhere
a
here.
person who's most qualified for the position.
Massachusetts.
Happy Saturday, Patriots. Who else will not be watching this stupid bowl tomorrow? Charlie Brown, meme. Of course, as we know, Charles Schulz from Minneapolis, specifically St. Louis Park, Golden Valley. Had a house kind of near where the Blake School is. It's a private school. It's kind of a prep school in Minnesota. One America, one anthem. His drawing desk is kind of still, if you drive by the house, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, but it's kind of right on the road. There's like Theaterworth Park there, but I think it's right on the road that kind of goes out of this major park. And I feel like you can just look into one of those windows and see the drawing desk. So I've driven by that location probably thousands of times. So I always thought about that when I was driving by it. But anyways, one America, one anthem. There's going to be a lot of propaganda in the Super Bowl, that's for sure, tomorrow. I'm not watching it. Grant Cardone, biggest threats in America. #1, obesity. Yep, especially with women. I've seen more fat and ugly women over the past 10 years than anything else. I mean, they just get fatter and fatter and fatter. I realize I'm like 15 pounds overweight myself, so I shouldn't be judging other people. But I'm telling you, the women in the United States are getting uglier and uglier. And, you know, Swedish women are hot. I'm Swedish. Like a lot of the American women, unless they're young and they're like, you know, they haven't been obese. That's even a word. It's not. But, you know, if they haven't become obese, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it. There's a good clip, though, from Alex Jones. And he goes, it's a clip of an old guy going into a city council meeting. I should put it up. And he's like, all you women are fat. I love it. You know, it's these women who kind of just become tyrannical. Especially these fat women who can't get any attention. Anyways, I'll stop. Over-medicated? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's hyped up. I don't know. Entitlement attitude? Maybe. 4, I think I would put #1 here. And I'd maybe put something else, #2, maybe obesity. Corrupt government agency should be #1. Oh, this person says, yeah, corrupt government. All right, so we got your boy, Donald J. Trump, showing up to Mar-a-Lago with Melania. Here we go. Oh, we got Lindell here too. We got Mike Lindell here. I love how they put YMCA in the background. It's hilarious. It just triggers all these woke liberals. It's a good song. All right. Colonel McGregor, America is 1 minute to midnight. The time to act is now. True. Okay, I haven't seen this. Play it. Play it. Play. Okay, the tweet says, has a video attached. They're giving these illegals $30K to cover rent for 2 years in Roxbury. Why nothing for poor Americans in Roxbury? And then there's an @ to Ayanna Pressley, the bald, I don't even know if you can call her a congresswoman. You could call her a corrupt woman, who is getting a bunch of dark money, campaign donations. But anyways, yeah, and Donnie Palmer for Congress, who, I don't know anything about Donnie, but he's opposing Ayanna. It's good news.
Working with professional medical interpreters.
Okay.
Since they were invented, I still train them.
Okay.
And I work for
Thank you.
I work for an organization that exclusively takes low income, bilingual.
I will definitely.
And I
30K to cover rent.
leverage point to get them accepted into the classes.
So, you know, these guys, I don't know.
Can come in here?
I'm not fully understanding who is situated who or what the positions are for each of these people, but if he's advocating for illegals to come in, which he may be here, from the little bit of information I have from this video, I mean, they're getting paid to do this. You know, this is all just a huge money laundering scheme. All these guys or gals coming up trying to say that they're helping these illegals, it's clear that they're getting paid somehow for doing this, and it's a gratuitous payment. It's not something that's just like, you know, a couple, you know, $30. It's probably a couple $100 every time he goes and does something like this.
This is a migrant shelter.
I know, but can a vet come in here? Because can a vet use this place also? I'm not, your face is not on this. Your face ain't on this.
Me personally, bro, I I'm listening.
I know.
Yeah, he's just like, dude, I'm just trying to collect, my hourly pay here.
Oh, yeah, take that.
Hello, how you doing? Excuse me, sir.
Oh,
Can I have a
she's
card? My
from
name is Donnie
DPS.
Palmer. I'm running from the United States Congress.
So she's
I
there to
want to know,
make
can
sure
a
they
vet
don't
come
get
in here
deported or
and use this
something.
place also?
Not at this time.
Nah?
No,
Why
at
not?
This time.
At what time will they
Can I
be?
ask you to step out, please? For a minute?
Nah, I want to talk right
Oh,
here.
yeah.
No,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Unfortunately, you can't.
I can.
No, you cannot.
I can.
Sorry.
I just
I
wanna-
know you're recording.
You're right. It's all these fucking NGOs who think that they run the joint. Unbelievable. These are public facilities that are paid for by state and federal tax dollars. And you can't even use them. And then you got some crazy NGO type in a suit telling you to get out of a facility that you technically paid for through your own tax dollars. Meanwhile, he's getting paid thousands of dollars by abusing these illegal immigrants who are coming in. It is just wild.
I'm just
It's
trying
okay.
to be kind.
It's okay. I'll
and
come out.
plus,
Listen,
and
why can the vet come up? Why can the vet?
This is public. It's closed, and that's all I'm going to
public,
tell
So
you.
why wouldn't you let a vet come in here? That's my question.
Sir,
if he needed a
sir,
place.
this area has been closed.
Yo, my name is Donnie Palmer. I'm running from the United States Congress.
Wonderful.
Anna Presley.
I'm very.
Listen, brother. You should have some vets in here, at least 2 or 3 or 5.
Well, so yeah, here's the thing. Like he's running an actual campaign here. This is like core political speech. He's allowed to be in there. Yeah, maybe he didn't alert them beforehand and say, hey, I want to come in and film, because he didn't want to like give them any advance notice. However, this is technically a violation of the First Amendment. He should, it's not like a changing room. There's just public space here. There could be people sleeping, but they're dressed. It's not like he's going and doing anything inappropriate.
Like to make that point, just go ahead and email. Just email.
You should make that point.
Yeah, email. You got to
You should help me
email. You
make
got to
that point.
email.
Well, sir, you want
You
to
gotta
make the point.
email,
But you should help me
bro.
make that point, though. Some vets downtown, out on the streets right now.
Fucking
I was one of
assholes.
them.
You know how much time and money it took to get like this veterans home built over in Minneapolis? They have this veterans home for older veterans who don't have money for housing and so forth. It took an enormous legislative effort. It took a bunch of lobbying to the federal government, to the VA, in order to get that thing built, because it was old. They had an old one there, and they had to like rebuild it. They had to like, I don't know if they tore the old one down or they just built a new one. It got built, but it took, I'm telling you, at least 7 to 10 years of like constant lobbying, and they were just, it went on and on. And here, the illegal immigrants can just take over clinics, schools, nursing homes, gyms, community centers, private homes.
You guys open this place up for them. I'm from Roxbury. This place should be opened up for vets and Roxbury people, not illegals who just cross the border,
Yeah,
brother.
he doesn't care. He's getting
Have a
paid.
wonderful day, sir. Okay.
Fucking asshole.
And your name, though? Can I have
And
your
then he's
card?
gonna cowardly
Your name.
sneak back
do you
into the
need this?
Your
building.
name, brother.
Hey,
Your
don't
name,
touch
brother.
me.
Your name,
Don't
brother.
touch
What's
me.
your name? That's public, bro.
No, who?
No,
I'm not
Your
public.
name? Yo, you
Do
right
not
for
touch
public.
He
me.
barely brushed him, right? He didn't even, it wasn't even intentional, right? All he did was just try to hold the door open so he could continue the conversation. And the guy is like basically trying to then now accuse him of assault in order to call the cops to get him arrested. It is just utterly absurd.
What's your name, brother? What's your name,
And he
brother?
wants his name. Like, what's his fucking name? Yes, he does. Yeah, we need to know your name. You're on public property and you're facilitating this. We need to know. I hope they got his name somehow. Yeah, where did the money come from? Man, that just drives me nuts. All right, here's another one.
All right, this is what I have to drive through.
Every
To
time
get
I go to
to the
Fruitvale,
fucking Home Depot. Look at
Home
this
Depot
shit.
in Oakland,
I gotta drive through all this.
homeless
And it's not
camps,
just these that you can see.
filthy,
These go like
filthy,
fucking
filthy.
20 RVs deep, man.
public sanitation.
Just to get to this fucking Home Depot right here.
No public sanitation.
Oakland, California.
whatsoever. They got those barriers set up.
This is what I have to drive through to get
I mean, this is
to the
just
fucking Home Depot. Look at this shit.
people
I
living
gotta
in
drive through all this. And
cars
it's
that
not
have been in
just
accidents.
these that you can see. These go like fucking 20
Why doesn't
RVs deep,
Oakland
man.
just clean all this stuff up?
Just to get to this fucking Home Depot right here. Oakland, California.
You got fences around
Alright.
McDonald's like it's a war zone. Okay, here's another one. Dang, I gotta close the browser next time before so I don't have to unmute all this bullshit. All right, here we go. Apparently Twitter won't classify these as chemtrails. They have to call them contrails. I don't know the technical difference between those two definitions, but they're contrails. The chemicals that are released there, yeah. You know, the fuel in those planes. The spraying has been increasing in 2024. According to community notes, this is just contrails. I'm not allowed to say what it is. Oh yeah, here's your boy Chris Wallace taking a shot at Tucker Carlson. Tuk as Jason Burmis would call him. Shout out to the Burmis Brigade.
Tucker Carlson showed up in Moscow this week to interview Vladimir Putin. It turned out to be anything but an interview.
I don't know. See,
Putin
Chris Wallace here is either brain dead or he's under a great deception. He's under a great delusion, as the Bible would say. Like, I don't know if there's some personal grievance or gripe with Tucker Carlson because they both worked at Fox News together and Chris Wallace got hammered for being a rhino or what, but it's just so crazy what he's saying.
On for 2 hours and 7 minutes while Tucker sat there like an eager puppy. Occasionally, but rarely, he got in a question, like this one about the power of the deep state in Washington.
It sounds like you're describing a system that's not run by the people who are elected in your telling.
So, you know,
That's right. That's right.
Chris Wallace is like, you know, picking these little clips here, and he picked this one, for example. So what does this tell you? This means that it's true that we have, you know, a quote-unquote deep state or an underclass, an underbelly of the government that is actually running things. I think, you know, a more accurate description of the deep state would be like the ugly underbelly of the federal government. The underclass.
But more telling than what Tucker asked is what he didn't ask. Nothing about why Putin invaded a sovereign country.
It's not like we need to say
Nothing about targeting civilians. Nothing about Russian war crimes. A reporter can ask Putin a tough question if he wants a real interview. Why is it that so many of the people that oppose Vladimir Putin...
I think the real question is, all that's true. However, why didn't Chris Wallace ask why the Ukrainians were targeting civilians in Donbass and Donetsk?
End up dead or close to it.
See, I mean, Putin knows what's going to be asked here. He's
Not
just like,
why
this
Tucker
asshole's
went to
asking me a
Moscow.
fucking stupid question.
During the Cold War, gullible Westerners who spread Soviet propaganda
All that's
were
true, though.
dismissed as useful idiots. But calling Tucker that is unfair to useful idiots. No, he's made a cynical decision to chase MAGA's affection for dictators.
I don't think that's
What
true.
better
Dictators? What are you talking about?
way to cash in than Putin's Kremlin?
I bet you this is written for Chris Wallace. The shame machine, the CNN shame machine. They want to shame anybody who goes to try and paint an accurate picture of this conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Oh, We need our own propaganda. We need to make sure that we have wars. We need to make sure that we can trigger Russia into starting wars. You know, I think Vladimir Putin just got fed up. He was just like, all right, you guys want a war? Let's go. Let's see. Okay, when conspiracy theorists hear people admitting facts they knew 2 years ago, there you go. Al Pacino. Julian Assange clip. Unmute. Got to get through the rest of these quick.
At Belmarsh prison
late.
for the second time, Britain's Guantanamo. He spent 23 hours every day for 3.5 years in solitary confinement. This is an attempt not to break him, but to kill him.
It's true, it is. And at least Julian Assange likely has books, material to read during that time, and maybe some outside phone calls. But I think the books are particularly important in solitary confinement, especially considering the fact that he's going to be there for 23 hours a day. Being in solitary confinement, even for 1 or 2 days, is very, very challenging. But there's also varying levels of solitary confinement, and Julian Assange isn't in like the level where he doesn't get any material. Like, you can escape a little bit if you do have magazines, books, and that sort of thing to read. And the real problem too, however, is that, for example, like some of the staff there, they won't even give you Bibles, or depending on whatever, you know, faith background you have, they won't give you any religious text. And that's, I think, like the most soul-shattering thing when they do that, because that's a hardcore prisoner's rights violation. They need to provide you with that. That's, you know, that's like the bedrock of their entire system. And when they do that to you, and you know that's like the one right you have, to basically have a Torah, have a Bible, or if you're Muslim, to have a Quran, for some reason it's just like,
it's slow murder of a man who's not been convicted, has not been charged of anything except journalism. I find it astonishing that there were people on the left who turned against Julian, newspapers like Guardian, who played a role in his incarceration and vilification. Julian is holding on.
right now.
Julian is not well. Julian's soul has been diminished.
I don't know if you can ever diminish a soul. I don't think that's true, but I think that the DOJ should immediately drop this extradition of Julian Assange. I think Biden should give him a full pardon, issue an executive order stopping this nonsense immediately.
By solitary, it feels, he told me, as if his personhood has been shrunk down to a tiny kernel.
It's true.
And his hope is that if our campaign for him to become free again succeeds, that he can grow his personality again from that kernel.
Won't happen.
This is our duty. If you care for your right to know what your governments do behind your back.
Okay, speaking of Tucker Carlson, I mean, what other journalists have you seen go and visit Julian Assange in prison? That's what, if you're Christian, that's what Jesus teaches us, is go and visit prisoners. Go and speak with prisoners. You know why? Because Jesus was in prison. Jesus was kept in prison before he was executed. And when you go to prison, you're helping Jesus. That's what Jesus teaches in the Bible. And when you're helping and giving things that you can to people in those positions, the persecuted, and there are a lot of persecuted people, not people who just commit violent acts. You know, I mean, there are people who do that it's awful, you know. I mean, violence to me, again, I'm a pacifist. I've never, in my adult life, I mean, I don't recall ever really being in a fight, maybe defending myself, throwing my hands to protect my face or whatever. But I mean, yeah, violent acts are bad, but there's a lot of people in prison who don't really belong there, are being persecuted in one way or another. And that's exactly what, you know, pretty much all faiths teach us. Tucker Carlson went there. What other journalists have been there to document what's happening to Julian Assange. I'm sure there are others, particularly in the UK, but you don't see Chris Wallace going to interview Julian Assange. Why would he not do that? Well, A, because he'd have to get authorization from CNN, and CNN would never get it. So that means that Chris Wallace is a kind of a pussy when it comes to, hey, let's get rid of my, $10 million a year salary, whatever it is, and like, let's do some actual work.
In your name, all those crimes.
That's my new rule. I don't think Chris Wallace should be able to criticize Tucker Carlson or really anybody in the alternative media unless he goes and interviews Julian Assange and puts it out regardless of what his employer thinks, and do it in a form that's not edited, heavily edited, so that they can push a specific narrative
against humanity being perpetrated not only in battlefields and invasions of foreign lands, but also against our environment, the secret deals with fossil fuel companies, then you must support Julian Assange, because Julian Assange is dying for your right to know what your government is doing on your behalf behind your back.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been through this. Not to the extent that Julian Assange is currently going through it, but I've been through it. Johnny Midnight, LOL, truth. U.S. bobsled team renames their sled Biden because nothing has taken America downhill faster. There you go. Okay, I'll have to kind of explain this the best that I could possibly do. Best that I can. Crime Watch Minneapolis. It's a very, very popular account on Twitter and X. They post all these updates about crime in Minneapolis, and it's gotten out of hand recently. You just see a lot of crime in Minneapolis. Meanwhile, you have Mayor Jacob Frey, who's a complete loser. He's a liar. He's an idiot. He's just a low IQ attorney. And he's talking about how people shouldn't be working remote jobs and making fun of people. He has ruined Minneapolis. He's not even from Minnesota. He's not even from Minneapolis. And he's from Philadelphia. He ran Minneapolis into the fucking ground. But that's totally beside the point. And this is coming, from my family. Now, I think my grandfather was on the city council of Robbinsdale at some point and had a lot of interaction because Robbinsdale's in Hennepin County. It's like a neighboring city. A lot of interaction with Minneapolis and the city council there, the aldermans. And Jacob Frey is a fucking fraud. So anyways, beside that point, there was a Somalian who direct messaged the account, and it was well written. There's a screen grab of it. Very well written response. However, he said that the account should no longer talk about Somalians in any way that would invoke, quote, hate speech or something, or not use pirate descriptions to talk about Somalians. So now I would encourage everyone, just like Crime Watch Minneapolis is now doing, is they're attaching the new Minnesota state flag, which is the Somali pirate. With this actually matches the Somali flag. It's just different colors. Ilhan Omar was involved in designing the new Minnesota state flag, by the way. But they attached an accurate skull and sword pirate logo here. There's a lot of history behind this logo, by the way, but I love it. Yeah, so use the Somali flag now. And I'm personally curious potentially on who the suspects are here, because we do have a Somali flag here, right? Now they go after people like me for things that aren't crimes, right? They destroy my life, throw me in jail for years on end, throw me in solitary confinement, and then later state Supreme Courts will vacate the statute they used to inflict torture on me for basically me having a hangnail. But they'll allow these Somali pirates to commit, well, in this case, robbery of person. So robbing someone and fleeing the scene, stealing purses of probably a purse of probably, you know, a middle-aged woman. Fantastic, love it. Minnesota, there you go. Got a bunch of them here. Oh, here's one. Robbery at gunpoint of 4 females. Purses taken. Now, when we talk about domestic violence, domestic abuse, violence against women, well, I guess this would qualify, right? But again, if you're a white male and perhaps you've had a hangnail, or some woman has had a hangnail, or she views your Match.com profile, game over for you. They're going to try and throw you in prison for 15, 20 years. Particularly so if you criticize, I don't know, the judges or attorneys involved in the case. But if you're a Somali pirate, apparently, according to Crime Watch Minneapolis, you can rob 4 women at gunpoint. You can take all of their purses, and you will never be prosecuted. You'll probably never even be investigated. And that's just life in Minnesota. That's just life in this country, isn't it? A bunch of Somali pirate events. Boom. Oh, another one. What did I do today? I worked on my out-of-state bar application. Oh, she wants to move. This is not a serious state. So it would be racist if you were to arrest a Somalian. If you are caught on camera with huge amounts of evidence of you actually committing crimes, that would be racist. So Girl A Go-Go, and I think I've seen her before. I'm assuming obviously she's an attorney because she's now trying to get licensed in a different state. She's fed up. I think everybody's reached that level where, you know, me personally, I've been fed up for a long time. But yeah, I mean, the gloves are off. The gloves are off around the country too. Fuck NATO. Fuck the Biden regime. Fuck Uniparty. Let's watch this.
I'd like to add another point. The failure of the United States Congress, if it occurs,
what a
not to
fucking
support
clown.
Ukraine is close to criminal.
He said it's close to criminal negligence not to fund the Ukrainian war with Russia. Are you kidding me?
Neglect.
This is megalomaniac type stuff. This is maniacal. Again, this is similar to Napoleon or Hitler trying to go to war with Russia. Have those wars ever worked out? Hitler and Napoleon were brilliant strategists. They were, for the most part, brilliant politicians as well. Biden is none of those. How is this going to turn out for the United States?
It is outrageous. Kissinger was right when he said, not since Napoleon has Europe not looked over his shoulder and worried about Russia until now.
This is, I'm telling you, man, this reminds me so much of the fall of the French Republic when Napoleon went into Russia. This reminds me so much, and has very similar historical reflections of when Germany went into Russia in World War II. And again, what happened to Germany? Germany got crushed. Germany would have maybe been fine if they didn't start the war with Russia. And will this lead to the fall of the United States? Quite possibly, considering what we're dealing with right now. I've never seen this country in such poor shape. I've lived here for 40 years.
and I helped put NATO together in a way it hadn't been in a long time. So much is at stake, so they better step up. Thank you all very much.
And he's there with Scholz, the German chancellor, too. And, you know, he's cocked. He's like a little man, like this guy on the left here.
The failure of the United States...
it just makes me so angry. I mean, they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. They hid that evidence. They tried to propagandize it and lie about it. You know, that's their go-to. Lie, lie, lie. And of course, all administrations lie a lot, but no one has ever blown up a huge gas pipeline, an act of war, in order to continue to basically retaliate against Russia, trigger Russia into more military action, raise the price of energy in Europe and the United States. When you see it, you can't unsee it. I don't know what this is. Paid off my car and my credit score dropped 35 points. What? Laughing my fucking ass off. Love this very real system we base our entire lives on. The ESG system, I agree. This credit system, credit rating, credit report, like, I was thinking about this. It is so rigged. And it's not real. Like, you have to buy stuff with cash, but like, I understand banks need to have some idea of whether or not you potentially are a person who's worthy of potentially paying off a loan. I can understand it from that level, but beyond that, I really can't. I mean, like, our whole lives are ruled by some arbitrary, artificial credit rating report that can easily be influenced or rigged based on DEI and a whole host of other attributes, societal conditions. And what we see is, again, that some groups seemingly always get the benefits and then other groups don't. And what groups are we not seeing get any benefit whatsoever? Working class, quasi, white collar professionals who are black or white or minorities, but generally men, right? That's who always loses in these systems. And then who wins? Well, even though her credit score dropped 35 points, it's usually women like this. And again, I'm not trying to be anti-woman here or anything. It's also, not white women in general. It's just, or I guess maybe if you're an illegal immigrant, you get a default score of 800. Take out any loan you want. Meanwhile, if you're an American, if your family, your forefathers fought in combat for this country in various wars, built this country with their own hands, you don't get any of that benefit whatsoever. None. You're foreclosed from having any benefit whatsoever. All right, Shadow of Ezra. I'll stop ranting. On June 4th, 1963, President John F. Kennedy issued Executive Order Number 1110, directing the Treasury to produce $4 billion worth of $2 and $5 bills. The bills, supported by silver reserves stored in the Treasury's vaults, were issued without debt or interest. The signerage, or profit from coinage, went directly to the U.S. government rather than to the privately owned U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. The issuance of notes was part of Kennedy's broader strategy to diminish the influence of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. On November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. All right, so let me analyze this. I didn't know that. So you occasionally do, well, we have a lot of $5 bills in circulation. We do not have a lot of $2 bills in circulation. So this is kind of like a test print, just to see, like, okay, I don't the signage. I don't understand the profit from coinage went directly to the U.S. government. Oh, okay. Interest. So if any of these were part of a loan, I don't know, a loan, the interest went directly to the U.S. government rather than to private banks, because the Federal Reserve is basically owned by a bunch of big private banks, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, you know, yada, 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 Bank of America. Okay. I don't understand how, I don't know if this is accurate though, because how could the Treasury Department, because they have, you know, serial numbers and all these bills, but how could they, especially in 1963, track how many $5 bills and how many $2 bills were part of any type of lending apparatus to promote commerce in this country? Because that's the only way that you could generate interest off the bills themselves. Anyways, it's a technical, complex financial calculation. But again, I don't know if this is true. It probably isn't actually, but it could be partially true. And even so, there's a lot of issues with it. However, I don't want to I always go down rabbit holes and think too deeply about this stuff. But if this is true, assuming it is, assuming arguendo, the implication here is that because President Kennedy was defying the Federal Reserve, effectively defying a bunch of these big private banks, that they tried to, you know, unfortunately what happened, take him out. I don't know. Could be a lot of issues here. But we do know, yes, that the CIA does know probably more than anyone else. And maybe President Trump knows as well. Maybe that's the one trump card, no pun intended, he holds against the intel agencies. And as I had recommended to Rudy Giuliani about 9/11 to release as much information as he possibly could because of what they've done to him, you know, maybe President Trump releases a lot of these archives in connection with the investigation surrounding Kennedy. I think that would be a good idea, particularly kind of in the twilight hours of the next administration in 2028, 2027. Famous Ted Gunderson clip here. We only got 2 more tabs to go through. Let's play this.
School case in Manhattan Beach, California. The children there claimed there were tunnels under the school.
I hate this.
They were taken into the tunnels and through the tunnels up into the trap door of a bathroom in a triplex next door, placed in automobiles and prostituted in the community. These are 2-, 3-, and 4-year-old children before they entered kindergarten.
Oh my God.
In addition, the children...
I didn't know this was on here. I don't know if I would have put it in here if I would have known it. But I feel compelled to play the entire thing because in order to fight evil, you have to walk through hell.
That they were flown into the mountains where they were involved with adults in robes, black robes, chanting, candles. They talked about the brown babies who were cut up, actually sacrificed. And in checking into this and researching this, of course, this was obviously a satanic ceremony. The McMartin family, who owned the preschool, they were tried of Ray Bucky and his grandmother. The grandmother was acquitted, hung jury on Ray Bucky. The second trial, another hung jury. I had an opportunity in 1990 to gain control of the school. Now, the school had been given to Danny Davis.
Okay, so there's, we're gonna watch again some other stuff here. Okay. I think what happened here is that Ted Gunderson got thrown off because it would have led to a bunch of high-level government officials involved or implicated in this whole operation. And that's, I think, what is most troubling, or was most troubling for Ted Gunderson, is that he wasn't able to follow through, and that basically his overlords were part of it. So it was like, you know, and how sickening this whole thing is. Like, I don't even want to hear about it. This is something I usually just try not to think about. But again, you know, in order to fight evil, you have to walk through hell. Here we go. Here we go. It's another form of it, really. I'm not sure what airport this is. Let's see. Welcome to America, where we house illegal aliens in our airports. We are now a third world country. This could be any major airport in the country. O'Hare, JFK, but if you're white and you're not an illegal immigrant and you're a citizen of this country and you try and sleep in an airport, you're going to get arrested unless there's a, you know, a layover that you're dealing with or the flight is delayed. But if you try and sleep in an airport and you're a citizen, you'll swiftly get arrested for sure. Just imagine like the trash, the sanitation issue here. Like, what about a family bringing their kids in for a trip, right? And you got little kids coming in, you know, and they're all bundled up, ready for the trip, and they have to deal with this, right? And how traumatizing that would be for them to see these illegal aliens being exploited and trafficked by the federal government, which really, I mean, I think that's probably a better description, is that they're being trafficked. They're not illegal aliens, they're trafficked. Individuals and families trafficked by the federal government, trafficked by Joe Biden, trafficked by Merrick Garland, trafficked by Alejandro Mayorkas, trafficked by the deep state. All right, enough of this. All right, one more. We got the cache of documents Putin wanted to give to Tucker. And then in the second image here, we have Zelensky doing some gay troop dance. Then the third image, we have Tucker Carlson hysterically laughing. And then the fourth image, we have Putin responding with a laugh. Hopefully Putin put that printout in this huge cache here. Maybe in one that would have been fantastic, you know. Just throw it in there. You know, it's kind of a joke, but be funny. All right, that's it. That's all I got, players. That's all I got. We got your boy Tucker. Tuck, as Jason Burmis would say. Shout out to the Burmis Brigade. We got the Super Bowl tomorrow. Again, I'm not watching it. We got Taylor Swift propaganda during the Super Bowl. It's going to be the Taylor Swift Bowl. We got no one watching on Rumble. Well, we're screwed. All right, I'll see you players later. We'll shut this show down.